Here we go, True Devine podcast. What if the biggest barrier in your life isn't the obstacle right in front of you, but instead the way you've been told or taught to look at it? Now, before you switch off and get the shits with me, for years we've been told to focus on what's wrong, on overcoming weakness, on eliminating and removing the barriers, right? Look across your life, it's true. But what if it's the wrong place to start? In today's conversation with a great mate of mine who I went to school with, incidentally, Tony Burns, you'll hear a completely different perspective. You know, we unpacked how to reframe and look at your life a little differently. We're going to invite you to stop searching for what's missing and to see what's already there. You know, that's the whole live the gift, lift the world premise is, I say thinking allows you to understand the world, but seeing helps you to experience it your way. Okay, a couple of things here before we get into the show is we want to shift your attention from problems to possibilities. Listen to Tony and I talk about this. We unpack it beautifully, right? We also want to take feelings aren't our enemies. You know, feelings are those things within that are your guidance system. You know, people always say that, hey, Troy, I'm quirky, or I've got this thing going on, or I've got this weird laugh or that. You know what? If it makes you feel amazing, feel alive, feel part of life, they're your markers. They're not mine to judge you. They're not yours to be concerned with others on what you think, what they think about you. They're your markers, right? Also, thirdly, your barriers are yours. You know, I love this quote from Tony with a note. The barrier isn't the event. It's my relationship to that event. Now, you think about your life as one big image, but it's constructed from your thoughts. So your tomorrow is literally going to be a repeat of your yesterday. Now, people always say to me as well, how do I get past that part of getting over myself? How do I push past that fear? You know, when I step one step past my barrier or my belief system, it really hurts. It's painful. That's because life is on repeat. What if that thing, your gift, is designed for you to matter? Because you do matter in life, but then you're going to express yourself in life. That's living your gift, lifting the world. You do matter, your gift matters, and your expression of that gift matters. Now, if you've never done this before, of course you're going to feel upset, pain, frustrated, resentful. They're just past wounds and past stuff. Let's not look back in there and trudge up the past and overhaul our entire life so we have to start again. Start now. Start right here, right now. This episode with Tony Burns, I cherish this guy because I went to primary school and high school with him. Then we reconnected a few years later for this show. I really hope you get inspired by this show, not to go out there and try and make a world of difference at once, but just get to know yourself one step at a time. You know, we want you to have no pressure in life. We want you to have clarity, purpose, and conviction so then your life feels on point. That's live your gift. You do matter in this life. I really hope you love this episode. Bear in mind, just a side note, there are a few old references to the Soul Gift podcast. That's what this show originated as. Tony has since moved on from the CEO of HBA. He's doing the same things. That core essence, that core thread of Tony moves with him no matter what he does. So, old episode, enjoy it, take some amazing, powerful notes, jot in your journal, and then live your gift. Thanks for joining the show. Tony Burns, thank you very much for joining us on the Gift Podcast.
It's great to be here, Troy.
I have known you for a long time. We shared some schooling days together, and now at age 40, I believe our lives have reconverged or re-met along the path because we're both pursuing very similar goals. So if you wouldn't mind, just explain to the listeners what you're doing right now.
Absolutely, mate. Look, we've had a great relationship, and it's awesome to reconnect. And you hit it on the head. We're both following our passion and purpose. And at the moment, I'm an amazing opportunity to be the CEO of a company called HPA, Helping People Achieve. And every single day I come to work, and we've got the opportunity to inspire the community, inspire the organisation. It's about empowering people and focusing on possibilities and not disabilities. And we're doing some amazing things, and it's super exciting.
So just explain HPA, Helping People Achieve. What is the crux, if you like, of the organisation? How does that impact people's lives?
Absolutely. So it's got an amazing journey. It started back with a dream in 1963 by Harold and Peg Garner. And they had a child that had a disability, but there was nothing for them up here in the Northern Territory. So they created a company called Handicapped Persons Association. From that, it's gone through the ups and downs of the for-purpose and not-for-profit world. There's 3 enterprises in the business. So there's Kokoda Industries, which is your woodwork, metalwork, fabrication, pallets, crates, furniture. And then we've got specialty products, army targets, and then we've got Oz Designs, which is you specialising in confidential paper shredding, Indigenous souvenirs, screen printing and embroidery. And then we've got an accommodation arm of our business too. So we've got independent supported living, and we help them with their cooking and baking, and then hopefully they can live independently going forward. So across that's the 3 arms that all fits into the HPA brand. And obviously, you know my story when I took over. I don't like the word disability, so I changed it to helping people achieve, and we've done some pretty amazing things in a short period of time.
So that's got to mean a lot for the family that you have there. Let's call them the family. It's got to mean a lot for the family knowing that a new CEO has come in and not focusing on, hey, we have a disability, but hey, we actually have an opportunity right now.
Absolutely. You know, it was a blessing that I still call it a blessing that I was given this opportunity. And it all linked back to what I was doing in my past, which we might talk about later on. But it really is. It's about not looking at what currently the model was and going, how can we impact more on a greater level, and then from there, impact more people, inspire the community, and at the same time, grow the business.
And growing people. So how do you feel being the leader of an organisation? I mean, you have a massive team around you. Obviously, you're not the sole provider or organiser of that whole organisation, but how does that make you feel on a daily basis, knowing that you're living a life that is growing yourself as well as other people?
Look, I pinch myself, Troy. You know, sometimes I come to work and I reflect, you know, from time to time on the opportunity I have. I definitely don't take it for granted 1 second, the responsibility I have to impact a lot of lives. And at the same time, when you're coming from a place of purpose and passion, you cannot go wrong, you know. You can just only give, and it's the old Zig Ziglar saying, help more people get what they want, and you'll get what you want. And that's been the philosophy from the organisation, and we're continuing to break down barriers and, you know, impact a lot of people.
That's amazing, mate. I remember when I was searching a few years back for my purpose and a bit more passion in my life, you know, I was sick of the Groundhog Day, and somebody said to me that if you want to get more purpose and meaning in your life, serve more people. And at the time, you know, I was young 30s, early 30s, and I wasn't quite sure what they meant. But now that you explain what you do, it certainly makes sense now. So serving more people is definitely a major key.
Absolutely. You know, I think it's we all want to find that, Troy, in life, you know, and listeners out there, they'll probably appreciate that. That's what everyone wants. It's deep down inside of us. We've got something that we want to do or achieve or give and grow. And I think when you find that opportunity and the train track to really impact that on a big level, you know, you talk to and you see successful people. It's all about what they can do to make bigger impact on other people's lives. The true people, you know, the Elon Musks of the world and Richard Bransons of the world. You know, they don't do it just for themselves. They're impacting lots of people around them, and you get a following from that. And I think when you create a bit of a momentum, it's like a snowball effect. It gets bigger and bigger, and if it's heading in the right direction, you can impact a lot more people.
So you just mentioned Elon Musk and Richard Branson and now Tony Burns. What a collective to be amongst. But there's a fine line that you walk as that person that shapes and molds and sort of directs the ship of change, if you like. So how do you deal personally with the fear, the worry, the stress, and the emotional ups and downs that you must go through making decisions on behalf of an organisation?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to be honest with you, sometimes it's like running a marathon, and you know my passion about running marathons. If you logically thought about running a marathon, mentally, most people don't do it because they're scared of the pain and that. And I look at it as, if I logically thought about all the stuff that I need to control and worry about and concern before, you know, from a CEO point of view, logically, a lot of people wouldn't do it, but it's coming from that place of simplicity, you know. I think if you're coming from that rawness to go, you know what, I'm following my purpose, I've got an opportunity, I'm learning every day, I'm learning from my mistakes, I'm minimizing those mistakes and turning them into opportunities. And then from there, you continue to grow every week. And that's how I look at it. I think, you know, I reflect on what I've done in a short period of time, and I'm proud of what I've achieved, but I've still set bigger goals and bigger opportunities to keep going forward. And I think as leaders, if you have that mindset to really, really make sure that you are continuing to learn every single day, then I feel that you head in the right direction, and you'll continue to grow and grow other people at the same time.
Well, I wish I had heard that a few years ago when I was going through I was all in my head, right? I had so many decisions at my disposal, I froze with fear. Like you said, I was over-analysing every step of the way. I needed to know where steps 1, 2 and 3 would lead, what was after, what was before, everything. So I obviously froze with fear, and I couldn't chase my passion or find more meaning in my life. But if I had heard what you just said, then it's from a heart space. It's about delivering the best you can in each moment, and then achieving the growth along the way. That, you know, I kind of want to change my life. So that's a really big, valuable point you raised right there.
Yeah, thank you.
So you would say that the curve of growth, if you like, as a leader, anyone out there wanting change in this world or more meaning in their life, I would definitely put the label leader above their head. Would you say that you're kind of always experiencing an element of fear and a little bit of unease because you're growing always?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just a common nature of when you're setting yourself that bar of heading into the unknown sometimes, there's always an opportunity of frustrations and concerns. But, you know, it's like, you know me, the Rocky 3, Eye of the Tiger. You know, the philosophy of dealing with anything that comes full on, and it's your mindset. Either I take a positive step towards making this work, or I take a negative step. And in a lot of cases, unfortunately, people take the second part. But if you have that mindset to go, I'm going to take this head on, and I'm going to make the best out of this opportunity to learn from it and grow, you know, a lot of the times you achieve greater things than you can ever think of, and you look back and go, it wasn't as hard as you thought it would be.
Yes. Absolutely. I would say the fear is still there. It's not an overwhelming fear for me anymore. It actually has meaning now. Like, I actually put a different spin or a different story on that feeling of fear and overwhelm that comes in my life. I know that it's an opportunity or a doorway for me to go through and impact more lives, rather than it's something I need to run from.
Yeah. And you're doing that on a bigger level. And you think yourself what you've achieved in a short period of time with your podcast and the people that have been involved in your listeners. You know, the impact that you're doing. You know, I'm so proud of you, and it's great to see. And you're taking that philosophy as well.
Okay, so I think our life's just beginning, right? We're both about the 40-year-old. I truly believe our life has just begun, and we have a lot of years left to impact. Let's talk about Tony Burns when we were back at school. Like, we did high school together, and I remember you as someone who would just run. You were like a marathon runner, and you were the most amazing tennis player at school. Like, you had a passion and a dream to become world #1 tennis player. So I'd like to just touch base on that so the listener understands, or so we can understand that sometimes pursuing a passion, you have to get to a point where you have to make a very, very tough decision. And I know you faced that for sure.
Yeah. You know, I had an amazing upbringing on the Sunshine Coast as yourself, you know, living there, and I've got two amazing mother and father who, you know, have had their struggles in their life, but they've supported myself and my brother and gave us the best opportunity to be good people. And then I had that dream, you know, I wanted to be a professional tennis player. I had those choices when I finished school, and I had the choice to go to college tennis in America, got a scholarship, or I could go and play professionally. And I chose, I did a test, my SAT test, and I had to make a decision within 24 hours. And I made the second decision of go pro because I believed in myself that if I didn't give it 100%, I'd look back and I would regret it. And, looking back, I've got no regrets. I traveled the world for 3 years and went to 27 countries and played a lot of people. I beat Pat Cash in an exhibition tournament, so that was my claim to fame. And he retired 2 weeks later, so that's a true story too. So, you're right. It's taking that drive and passion and learnings, and then it was really hard for me, Troy, to come to terms that I wasn't going to make it as a professional tennis player. But I realised to set realistic goals, and if I wasn't going to get to that point, I had to make that call to move on to a next challenge. And once I realised that, I used that experience and passion to go into my next journey.
So did you take a long time to make the decision of, I need to let go of this? Because I thought that was your calling, right? You were so devoted 24/7. You were hungry. You were the hungriest person I saw chasing a dream and a passion. So did you take a long time to let go of that, or you made a really tough decision to say, okay, this is not for me anymore?
It's a combination. I think, I still watch the Australian Open and the French Open, Wimbledon, and part of me is still that dream that, I wish I could have made it. But that's a reflection on, that when you have that burning desire in you, I think it never goes out completely. Do you know what I mean? But I made a decision in 1999, 2000. I made that call that if I don't move my ranking up within 12 months, so I gave it a period of 12 months, I had to make that call. And unfortunately, at that point in time, the ranking didn't move that much, and still living off a credit card. And I made the call to hang it up, and it was pretty tough, and it took me a long time. I didn't pick up a racket for about 5 years.
Wow.
But it was the right call, and looking back, all the points in my life that have led to where I am now was a reason because of that call.
I look back at that and I remember the devotion and the hours you put in and that drive and passion that you had. I believe that life is kind of like a way of life, right? No matter what platform you stand on, be it professional tennis player or an accountant or a CEO, no matter what platform you stand upon, I truly believe it's a way of life. And this is a mind game that we're all playing. And if you can learn how to harness the power of the mind and then guide it intelligently, I think I know life takes on a whole new meaning. And for you, I see you went all in, with your tennis, with your running. You always go all in, 100% heart, 100% commitment. So that's the Tony Burns way of life. And I would, that's something that we all need to I guess, implement in our life. Not so much focus on who I am as an electrician, who I am as a whatever, but more on the way of life that we live.
Yeah, look, it's as I said before, I took a decision very early on, and this is a combination of the motivation movies I watched, the books I read, the people I was inspired by, and it's a combination of making that almost like you're training your muscles. So you're training your brain, you're training the way you think, the way you act, the way you believe in yourself. My 5 Ironman races that I've done and my 2 Ultraman races that I've done, physically and, I wasn't the greatest marathon runner, but from a mental point of view, I believed I was the greatest in the world, and so that made me achieve a lot of things that I've done solely because it was in my mind. It wasn't because I was the fittest guy out there, but I believed in my mind that I could achieve it, and nothing was going to stop me.
Yeah, that word believe you said, and what you're saying about the mind, I believe hands down as well. I truly believe hands down. Not that you go out there to beat people in the mind, but I believe I now have seriously harnessed the power of my mind, because what I went through, it was sheer terror for a couple of years, and I just sat with it. I got to learn a lot about the power of the mind, and as you said, you do reprogram it. You are going through something. It doesn't have to last forever if you're struggling right now. Just remember that you are retraining your beliefs. You are retraining who you are as a person and how you live in this world.
Absolutely. We all got a choice, Troy, every single day, and I say this: get up in the morning. My first 2 thoughts are exactly the same as your 2 thoughts, and all your listeners out there. it's either a positive thought or a negative thought. And I can guarantee from my experience that a positive thought is so much more powerful than a negative. Now, if you think of one negative thought, it could be, you've got just old shoes on, or you're wearing an old shirt. The reality is, and you listen to media and all out, watch the news and all the negativity, it takes 10 positive thoughts to get rid of one negative. So my philosophy in life is to be as positive as you can be, because there are negative things that happen in your life, and rightly so, out of your control sometimes. So if you can be positive and be a positive influence on other people, you're helping the world a better place, and that's a good thing to be.
So let's talk about the negatives and the positives. Quite often when we go through negatives, it doesn't really make sense. But when you zoom out, i.e. a few years later, you can join the dots, and it very much makes a lot of sense to where you got to. So can you share with us a story of maybe a chance meeting or something when at the time things weren't making sense, but now you look back, you think, okay, the 7 or 8 dots certainly helped you have a new belief or a new mindset.
Yep.
What's the story about that?
I'll give you an example, and it resonates to a lot of what I've been able to achieve. So I was inspired by a movie called Rudy. You know this story, but I'll tell the listeners. So if you're out there and you've never watched it, make sure you watch it. It's called RUDY, Heart of a Hero. I watched that movie on the 17th of 7th, 94. Now, I was so inspired by this movie that I went into my parents' bedroom and I said to my mum and dad, I'm going to meet this guy one day. Now, that was after watching a VHS movie, okay? That's how old it was. And 3.5 years later, I tracked the real guy down and had lunch with him in Las Vegas. Now, I wanted to tell that part because it links into the next part of the story. So when I was coming back from America, I saw a documentary on John McClane. Now, John McClane was the first person to do the Hawaiian Ironman in a wheelchair. And at the time, I was watching this movie and I'm thinking, wow, what an amazing man. And at the time, that was just before I was about to finish up tennis. So I'm going through a bit of a period where my life's coming to an end, my goal's about to finish, and I'm not achieving what I want to. And that's where that movie where I saw John, it linked in, okay? Now, fast forward 2.5 years later, I'm up at Noosa doing the Noosa Triathlon, and out of the corner of my eye, at 8 o'clock at night, I saw this guy in a wheelchair, and I thought, that looks like John McClane. So I ran over to him and introduced myself, and it's all moments of pockets of time, because you only have a moment to impact, you know what I mean, Troy? And I said to John, look, great to meet you. My name's Tony. I got inspired by your achievement over in Hawaii, and I told him about the movie called Rudy. Now, at the time, I only met John for about 5 minutes, and in that period of time, I didn't realise that he was training for to be the first person in the world to do the Hawaiian Ironman and swim across the English Channel. And in that period of time, John loved my enthusiasm, and he's got a foundation which raises money for kids in wheelchairs. And I became an ambassador for that foundation in 2004 and did my first Ironman race, which started the chain reaction of some amazing events. And, it's been an amazing journey since then. So I guess it's sometimes if you don't follow through, with going up and just saying hello or knocking on the door or just giving it a go, you just don't know where that impact can come. Because if I look back on that moment, if I didn't have the guts to go up and say hello to John, a lot of my stuff may not have happened.
I've just written down pockets in time, like you said, those moments in time. If we take a moment and think about that, an opportunity presents itself. If we don't act on that opportunity, it's going to go forever.
Yep.
And I don't hold on to regret now, but I can clearly look back at a couple of moments where I do kick myself for not taking the opportunity. So if nothing else is remembered from this show, remember, if you have a gut feeling or a thought or something that comes in your head that says you've got to go and ask a certain question or go and shake somebody's hand, then absolutely act on that and do what Tony does and go all in 100% in that moment, because these moments are so short, they come and go so quick, you never know what doorway is going to open as a result of you taking a leap of faith, if you like.
Absolutely. I agree 110%.
So if you would say, now, this is something I didn't know, well, if you would say your tennis came to an end, let's say you kept playing tennis, do you think you would have met John McClane?
In my heart, in my mind, I think I believe something would have happened to cross paths somehow. I truly believe that. I think, moments in time, and I think we're kindred spirits. I've he's a mentor of mine, and he was, been a big part of my influence in my life over the years. And likewise for me, when I did my croc to croc 100k run a couple of years ago, he met me at the 99k mark after I've ran for 15 and a half hours, and he walked unassisted for the last kilometre for the first time in 25 years. Wow. So, that kind of stuff is, I think I've achieved and empowered myself through him, but I know that I've been able to empower him as well, and it's been a pretty special relationship.
That is a huge point right there, right? Like, I used to elevate people, meaning that I would lower myself in stature. Like, who am I to talk to that person? Who am I to introduce myself to them? But it's amazingly powerful when you actually realise that you, Tony Burns, if you think about it, have flipped it and inspired a guy that hasn't done something in so many years to get up and do something. That's the power of, I think we're on a universal platform here and we're all level. And once you start believing from the inside out that, you just don't know who you can empower yourself.
Absolutely. It's been something that I still think back and I reflect, and I know that it was meant to be. I was meant to meet John at that point in time in my life. I was meant to see that documentary on the plane. I was meant to, look back and be part of his foundation, which impacts some amazing people. And now that I'm doing this on a daily basis, and proud to say that raised over $750,000 for his foundation. It's something that I'm pretty proud of.
You can actually look back the day you get to look back across your life and look at it with a smile, right? Like, you didn't live Groundhog Day, you went all in, like we say, and you basically had a way of life that was for the best of yourself and others combined.
You're exactly right, mate. We've got one chance, and there's no dress rehearsal in this game of life, and life begins at the end of the comfort zone. So my philosophy is, every day is a new opportunity and a new way of attacking the world and attacking life. And if we can learn and enjoy and, inspire, then, it's a pretty cool journey.
So how do we attack life? Very broad question. I went to so many seminars and spent, $30,000-$40,000 on self-education, and I was learning everyone else's way of life and their message towards life. But how do we find, because I believe every single individual has a unique calling in this life. They have a gift, hence the show. Yep. So how do we go about unfolding or unwrapping what our individual touch or spin on this world is?
I think the key of it, Troy, is that you need to be really, really honest with yourself. And
nice.
I think it's about just looking yourself in the mirror and going, am I where I want to be? And am I who I want to be, And I think if you can ask those questions honestly, and then as you unfold the layers of, uncertainty from time to time, you become a better person. And when you can associate yourself with like-minded people, you've got a positive influence on yourself and your family, but also others, then I know from perfect experience that the impact you have on others is the biggest currency that you can have to empower the world and empower yourself.
Here's exactly how it happened for me. I remember when I first looked in the mirror and asked those big questions. Am I being true to myself? Is there a bigger calling for me here? I looked in the mirror and it was just full of self-doubt. Because there was a mold, right? I had a record playing or a story playing in my mind that said, you are this is who you are, and this is what you are for life.
Yep.
So I just want to highlight that in the beginning, yes, it does seem like you're kidding yourself when you look in the mirror and ask that question. You think, no, it's much easier just to, sit back and play the game as I am. That's just, it's far less troublesome to do it that way. Yep. But I can assure you, once you impact one or two or three people's lives by a mere statement or a mere action or a simple book you've gone and bought and then share the experience. I can promise you, if you're listening, that once you impact one person's life and they give you feedback, real-time feedback, that your actions has deliberately changed the direction of their life, that's how you begin to unravel those layers that you talk about, Tony, right?
Absolutely. And you're never the same person, Troy. I think when you get feedback, sometimes constructive, sometimes amazing, and I think everything that comes back in your life, you can turn it into a positive. The challenges, you can turn them into opportunities. And I think if you train your muscle of the brain to think like that, then greater opportunities will present themselves. And we both can live by that purpose. And and I think it's we all have that chance. And I think if we make that choice to get out of bed in the morning, be inspired to do something great and have a purpose to make a difference, I can guarantee you that you will live a happier life than a lot of people out there.
Okay, so we've made a decision. We're asking the big questions. We know how to feel our way forward. I say, whatever feels good, whatever brings you happiness, whatever brings you joy, then that's the direction you must pursue. So we're heading down this road now. How important is a vision and a belief and a focus with that? Because you say you have I certainly have a vision of becoming a best-selling author, of helping people to achieve their soul calling. I see this podcast is going global and millions of listeners adapting a way of life. So how important is a vision and a focus once we're on this journey?
It's ultimately important, Troy, and all your listeners out there, you need to have a focus and a drive and a vision of purpose, because it's like if you want to drive and you want to go to Sunshine Coast, but you don't know how to get there, you don't just get in the car and just drive off and just hope that street's going to get you there. You have a direction, you put it in the compass, and you know the maps to get there and how much petrol you need. So you need to know the coordinates of where you're going. And I think a lot of people in the world get out of bed in the morning and they don't know what they're doing. I heard something the other day that 84% of people go to work hating what they do, and I think that's terrible, and I think what you're doing with your purpose and your vision of being amazing and what you're doing with impacting people, I'm the same journey as well. And I think if we can help that percentage get lower and get people back on a purpose of real action, getting, having a direction of making impact in their life, shooting for the stars. They might not get to the stars, but if they get halfway, that's a pretty good journey as well. And I think that's pretty cool.
I have behind me a vision board that says, as I look back and turn my head from the mic, a #1 best-selling author, like New York Times best-selling author.
You'll do it, man. You'll do it for sure.
You know what? I have a firm belief, a firm picture of it actually absolutely happening. But what you said before is, what, if I don't achieve that, I know that I went all in this life and I adopted a way of life that was true to that calling. Let me get one thing crystal clear is, there is one point in every one of these days that I experience where my mind says, stop, go back to being a construction worker. It's far easier. And this resistance, this train of resistance really wants to challenge me most days and says, righto, what are you doing? Honestly, what are you doing? And it's not a walk in the park, but I'll tell you, life has so much more meaning now.
Yeah. And, and you hit it on the head, Troy. When you have meaning in life and purpose, it's just so much more rewarding, It's taking the time to go for a walk in the morning down the beach and watch the sunrise and know that you're on purpose. Because when you're on purpose, it's just an amazing journey, What's worse than getting out of bed in the morning and not knowing why you're doing what you're doing, And a lot of people do that from week to week. They're living by paycheck. They're living to pay the mortgage. They're not sure if they're not in a happy relationship. I think, we all have this choice that we need to make. And if you can get on that purpose and that vision of following and shooting for massive goals, you won't hit every goal. But I can tell you what, the ones that you'll hit them out of the park.
I remember asking the very first time I was in search of more meaning and purpose in my life. I remember, and I've spoken about this before, I remember asking one particular person in Florida, the question I asked was, what's my life purpose? And it was such a broad question. They just smiled at me and said, that's the $1 million question, Troy. And that's all they said. Then they turned around and walked away. But for those people who don't know what their purpose is and is just, kicking furniture around the house right now, your purpose is to be on the way to your purpose, if that kind of makes sense. If you don't know what your end result is, then you need to adapt or live a way of life that's in search of that purpose and meaning. And then that is your purpose for now, because the inertia you build up on a road of self-discovery will unfold and unlock what you were destined. Sometimes that journey, they say the journey is important, sometimes that journey is exactly what unlocks your gift in life.
Absolutely. I look at my journey, Troy. When I moved up to Darwin 10 years ago, and I knew 2 people, and I took a risk, moved up here, and to look out the window now in my office and see what I've been able to create. I'm super proud, and I just had a little baby girl, which has changed my life. And life is amazing, and it's something I don't take for granted, and I'm enjoying every second of it.
So when we put ourselves out of our comfort zone, sometimes initially the circle of influence we have, or our friends and family, don't quite believe in that vision or that purpose that we have. I know when I shared the stories in my head of really what I want to do in this life, at the time circle of influence just didn't get it, so I had no support. So like you just said, you moved to Darwin, you knew 2 people, effectively 2 supportive people up there. Once we move through these opportunities and really take life or adapt a new way of life, opportunities present themselves. So that's what I want to talk about now. So recently you've had the opportunity to run the Olympic torch, is that right?
And it was an amazing moment in time a couple of weeks ago, and something that will stay with me for a long time.
So we would have to say, if you didn't put yourself out of your comfort zone and grow yourself while growing an organisation and others, an opportunity like this wouldn't have come to you.
Absolutely not. No, you've got to be selected for this, and they don't, as far as I understand, there's about 40,000 people that got nominated, and only 1,500 got chosen in Australia. So it was a pretty small category. And so, being in that moment of time a couple of weeks ago, and holding that torch, and then being there at the end with my family, it was something that I'll cherish for a long time. And you're right, if I didn't go out of my comfort zone all those years ago, and risk those opportunities to be where I am today, that moment in time wouldn't have happened.
So give us an example of a moment that stands out for you. Like, why is this all worth it? Why go out and seek the best version of yourself? Like, give me I know straight away you're nodding your head like you know what this story is, but why is it all worth it?
It's, in a nutshell, here it is. The impact that I've been able to do on so many people's lives is, I know it's a flow-through effect of transformation for community and people. And for me, to look back and see the difference that I have been able to influence in my own control on a bigger scale, for me, it's moving the community and the world in a better place. If you can impact people and leave a lasting impression on them in a positive way that will help them become better. Here it is. I remember when I was 13 years old and I saw Joe Girard, who was the world's greatest car salesman, down in Brisbane, and he was speaking. And I was there with my dad, and I remember watching this guy on stage, and I said to myself, I want to be him one day. And a quick story, Troy. Last year I got asked to be a speaker at the national conference for NDS, which is National Disability Services. And I actually went up the actual stairs when I was a 13-year-old, speaking in the same auditorium as Joe Girard did. And that was so many years beforehand. But, those moments in time, if you don't stretch yourself, you don't dream, the impact that you can have on others, I think that's the key, and that's my purpose. And I know it's your purpose, and it's doing a good thing.
This whole life, like in a nutshell, like you just said, I believe it's believing in yourself. It's simply that. It's this show, you and I having this chat. If we can get one person to believe in themselves, then the train of purpose or the train of meaning just takes over, and you'll build and build and build. I remember sharing my deepest vision and dreams with Dr. John DeMartini, and he looked me straight back in the eye and just said, "Absolutely, Troy, you will." I say this, he believed in me before I believed in me, right? But from that moment on, my life has never been the same. So what you're saying is, to see somebody's belief in their eyes, whether it's at your local kindergarten, if you're a teacher at the kindergarten, or maybe you donate your time as a volunteer somewhere, but once you see that belief in somebody's eyes, then I think that's the pinnacle moment.
Absolutely. The impact that you can have on people is the biggest influence that you can do. And I think, I love that story about, what happened with you. And, I remember when I, raised enough money to get a brand new car for a young girl that had muscular dystrophy. And, to be able to give her a brand new car that she could be mobile and go around to places and change her life, that's not just a one moment in time, it's impacted her forever. And that's only one case. And, when you can do that on multiple cases, it makes it a worthwhile journey, that's for sure.
I believe everything happens for a reason, and that kind of statement annoys people, right? But if you're listening to this right now, and you and I are having this chat right now, then you are absolutely born with a gift. You have a calling, and you're put on this earth to impact in some way, whether that's impacting 1 or 2 or 3 people, or 1 or 2, 3 million people. If you're hearing these words right now, as Tony and I are speaking them, we have a gift, a calling as well, which we're exploring. And absolutely, never give up on yourself and start believing in what you have.
Exactly right, Troy. That's, they can be listening right now, and this is their turning point in their life that they're going to make action to head in a different direction. And when you make that positive choice and go, enough is enough, I'm ready, I'm going to do a different direction, I'm going to make a bigger impact. And before you know it, they're heading in the direction that their calling was, and they're doing some good things as well.
Absolutely. So what's next for you? I know you have a huge heart, and you've obviously got a vision that's beyond all visions. What is next for you?
Well, talking about the corporate speaking, I'm pretty excited to launch my website in a couple of weeks' time to go live officially. And I'm going to branch off and continue my corporate speaking to the world. It's something that's been a passion of mine for many years, and I think the journey, what I'm doing with HPA and obviously with the fundraising and impacting a sector and community is something that is close to my heart. And so I'm really looking forward to exploring that further, continuing to push good positive blogs out there in the community, and keep unfolding the Tony Burns story to continue to be bigger and better, and we'll see where it leads.
This is the time of personal branding. I purely believe the next decade, it's 2018 right now, the next 10 years is all about the individual brand, and it's up to everyone to go and explore what their individual message is in life, and then go and get that out there, however that's possible.
Well, the timing of technology and social media and the way that we can impact on a massive level, which that, and you're doing that really super well now. I'm unfolding that as well with putting positivity stuff on social media and getting people to think about how they can become greater. And I think if you can do that and work on that brand and have that unique selling point to find what makes you unique to the world, because we're all unique, Troy, you know that, we're all different. But if you can find that passion and that purpose of real connection, the world's our oyster, and life will be an amazing journey, that's for sure.
Let's talk about, lastly, before we head over to where we can get more of Tony Burns, let's talk about the mountain or the brick wall that stands before us. And this word was crippling for me in the beginning, self-doubt. So You just said that I'm impacting through my podcast right now and in a grand scale, and I believe I am. But when you said it, my mind said, am I really? should I continue this? So there was an element of self-doubt. Here I am now recording an interview live with you and saying to myself, am I really impacting that much? Is it worth continuing on this journey? That was a live thought. I just want to put that up on the table. So how do we deal with the self-doubt that we always are going to face?
I think it's just understanding that self-doubt and maybe questioning it, I think, Troy, because we all have self-doubt. That's a common nature of life. But I think what happens when you have that self-doubt, holding that self-doubt right then, and then maybe asking the question, is that self-doubt really true? Is that reality? And a lot of the times, Troy, it's not. It's just that impact on your self-doubt that's questioning you. And I think that questioning is giving you options to think bigger and better. And from my philosophy, I've always looked at self-doubt as, an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to be better. So I think if you look at self-doubt differently, then I think the outcome will become different as well.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know my story, I went through major anxiety, and what you just said then, Tony, was actually questioning the thought. So when I had my initial thoughts of anxiety and a feel of terror, I'd actually get on that anxiety bus, if you like, and before you know it, my emotions went through the roof and I was down the road and out of control. But the minute I started holding the thought or the emotion and then beginning to question it right in front of me, like you said, I was no longer out of control on an emotional roller coaster. I was actually, consciously looking at this thing right in front of me and saying, is it reality? Does it serve me right now? What's something I could replace it with? And just that simple technique is you're no longer out of control, if you like, and on an emotional roller coaster. You're actually consciously choosing a new direction in life.
Absolutely, and it's the driver of the bus, Troy. If you're in control, we're all in control of our life, and if you're in control of your life and you're in control of your thoughts, and you've got more opportunity to use them into a more positive influence, then you'll get better results personally, and on the flow-through effect, you'll increase that positivity to more people. And it's like this, when you're around positive people and people on purpose, you draw to them. You know what I mean? People are drawn to them. You connect with them. You want to be around them. You want to learn. You want to learn from them. You want to know why they're like that. And I think that's the philosophy of life. And it's easy to get out of bed in the morning and think, oh, I'll stay in bed and won't go to work, or I won't go for that run, or I'll drink the beers instead of going out for the swim. It's those little thoughts and those moments of time when if you question it and what's the impact of that, it can be if it's for better, then go with it. If it's not, then choose to take the better section.
Yeah, that's the powerful. I would say that's one hell of a powerful wrap up right there. That would have changed my life. 5 years ago if I had heard all that. So. Thank you very much, mate. I mean, you're the current CEO of helping people achieve HPA in the Northern Territory, Australia. I know you have a heart of gold and seriously some big things ahead of you. So thank you very much, Tony Burns, for coming on the GIFT podcast.
Thank you, Troy. Have a great day, my friend.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that show. I want to leave you with this. There is awesome products and programs on my website. Right now, there's a 10-day energy reset. If you do feel like you're in a bit of a funk or obstacles are just piling up in front of you, just check out. Just go in there and be curious about doing a 10-day energy reset. The final observation is not what could I be doing differently? It is what have you not been seeing? This whole invitation right now around this episode is for you just to look with a curious eye. What have you not been seeing because of the way you have allowed your operating system to unfold in your life? Like I said in the beginning, you have a gift, you are the gift, and you do matter to life. That is the whole idea of this episode. So if you want, jump onto the website, check out some stuff. Thanks for tuning into the Troy Devine podcast. We'll see you in the next one.